since Eagle Watch started, my goodness. Reese, we were so young. But just Eagle Watch started in 1992 with 19 nests and 22 volunteers. And look how we've grown. They were in Eagle Watch was in three Central Florida counties, Orange, Osceola, and Seminole. And it has grown and flourished, protecting our eagles and leading the fight to ensure they continue their recovery from near extinction. Eagle Watch would not exist without the hundreds of volunteers who are out there after storms, checking on their nests, filling out their forms, and alerting the staff to any problems. Reese Collins, the fearless director of the Center for Birds of Prey, recognized that with a recovering eagle population and increasing development, there needed to be a program in place to monitor the birds and their territory. She enlisted Mike Platt, and together they launched what would become the gold standard for citizen science programs. After CBOP received a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant, Michelle Mirando was hired as Eagle Watch coordinator. In 1996, when I was a volunteer docent, Laura Richards and Heidi Sturgeon were co-coordinators. I was hired to work with Laura from 1998 to 99, and I really didn't know a whole lot about eagles back then. So thrilled you're here. I soon learned when I became the coordinator that I was blessed with the perfect volunteer. One who didn't mind driving me and an eagle all over the state of Florida, and who learned to love eagles as much as I did. He was an enthusiastic spieler with a saint's patience as people asked the same questions over and over and over again. And especially our favorite, what kind of bird is that? He also didn't mind much when I used him to illustrate the difference in bald and bald. My husband, Jim. Jim often said, you know, you're not going to get rich working for a nonprofit, but we have had some amazing experiences. Celebrating the 30th anniversary of the first Apollo moon landing and meeting the astronauts with Reese and Trouble and Paige. Yeah, it was a wow moment. Speaking at the Bald Eagle Festival in Alaska and telling those people that, yeah, you've got eagles up here, but we have eagles in Florida too, and I got to tell them all about our Florida eagles. Having Gary Sinise pose with Paige at a Wounded Warriors convention, that was pretty nice. But even more importantly, Paige posed with many of the injured servicemen who were there for that convention, some of them with horrific injuries, and they were so thrilled to meet a bald eagle. As well as the World War II veterans at a reunion for an honor flight, and we took Frankie over there, and he wowed those old veterans, and it was an amazing moment. We met our favorite Florida authors, Randy Wayne White and Carl Hyacin. We learned it's easy to attract people when accompanied by an eagle. And the eagle releases. I lost count, but my first release was on my birthday in 1998. I was still a volunteer. It was release number 182. I'm not sure, what are we up to now, Diana? 550.
550? 560 something.
Okay. So this was number 182. Diana drove me over to Vieira, and I had foot surgery. I had my foot was in a boot, and she finds this pasture in Vieira, and she said, this is perfect. So she goes tromping through the grass with me stumbling along behind her. She's holding the bird, but she did get to let me release it. And then she almost killed us on the way home because she saw two Cara on the side of the road, and we almost ended up in a ditch. So, So my last release was the day I retired, June 1st, 2012, and that was eagle number 450. So there were a lot of eagles in between 182 and 450. Eagle Watch volunteers played a big role in helping with the releases, helping identify missing birds from their nests, or helping place eaglets in foster nests. So they could tell me how old the babies were and was going to be a good fit. And so they were just instrumental in doing that. I met and worked with so many amazing volunteers. Some of you are here tonight, and they've become good friends, and we're still friends, and that's certainly a plus. I don't know how many times we said at the center we should write a book, because so many crazy, interesting, funny things have happened in all the years that we've been doing what we do. And I wanted to share just a few of them tonight. One of them popped up tonight when I saw our brave law enforcement officers here. This is one that as soon as I saw you, it came back to me. A few years ago in Ocala, an eagle was rescued by a police officer from Ocala. The bird was almost dead. Turned out he'd eaten a poisoned rat. And so we talked with the people who helped the officer and told them what to do, and they saved the eagle's life. He came to the center, he was rehabilitated, and it was time for release. We asked the police officer to come and release the eagle for us. We went to an elementary school in Ocala. The whole school came out and sat on the lawn to watch. And this young policeman came, and I thought he was very slight, and I thought he looked kind of bulky. And he came over, and I gave him a big hug, and I said to him, "Are you wearing a bulletproof vest?" He said, "Why, yes, I am." He said, "I didn't think I should take any chances." Yeah. So he was ready. And he didn't need the bulletproof vest, thank goodness. My next story goes way back to 2002, and during that year, we had whooping cranes in Polk County, and they hatched the first wild whooping crane chicks in Florida in 63 years. So not long after the chicks hatched, an eagle came and took one of the babies. I know, it was horrible. Everybody was upset. So a couple days later, the eagles show up again to take the second one. And the parents were ready and waiting. And as he swooped down, as Reese said, they took him down. They beat that eagle up. They pulled tail feathers out. They forced him into the water and almost drowned him. But he was rescued and brought to the center. Some tail feathers were imped in so he could be released. Reese and I took him back, and I released him. And afterwards, we stopped at the local newspaper office because they wanted the details. So Reese is sitting there, and she's going on and on about conservation and what a wonderful thing it is that the whooping crane has come back, and we have these hatchlings. And then, of course, say this. She said, "But we've got to teach these endangered species to get along with each other." And that's what they put in the newspaper. None of this great stuff about, conservation and the endangered species list. No, it was, we got to teach them to get along. Another of my favorites was back when Pelican Island was celebrating their 100th anniversary of as the first National Wildlife Refuge. Jim and I took Paige down there, and Jim Fowler, remember Jim Fowler, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom? He was there, and also Jack Hanna. We knew Jack because he'd come to the center and had done a segment for his TV program. And Reese and I took him to see his first wild eagles nesting. So someone was kind enough to go find Jim Fowler and bring him over to meet me because I was a big fan. And while we were standing there, this woman comes running up and she says, oh my God, are you Jack Hanna? To Jim Fowler. And Jim does not miss a beat. He says, why, yes, I am. And she just goes on and on about how wonderful he is and how she loves his program. And he was very gracious. And then he said, well, you might want to go and look for that other gentleman, Jim Fowler. He's here. And you really need to introduce yourself. And so that was quite the moment. I don't know if she ever found Jack Hanna to call him Jim Fowler or not, but I hope she did. I had an Eagle Watch volunteer. She was brand new, and she had to go out of town for about 4 weeks. She left little gray, fuzzy eaglets in the nest, and she was just beside herself when she got back, and she called me, and she was in tears. And she said, Linda, I don't know what's happened. She said, but my babies are gone. And I was, commiserating with her, and I said, well, it happens, and I'm so sorry. She said, yeah, and now there's 2 big old buzzards sitting in there. And I think this is what she saw. I said, no, those are your babies. She had no idea that they grow that fast. So, yeah, those are the big old buzzards. Eagles tend, most of the time, to find a nice piece of live greenery when they finish building their nest. They put it on the side of the nest. We think maybe to say, the nest is occupied, no trespassing. It's usually a live pine bough, sometimes a piece of a vine. One of my volunteers was out one day. She just had her binoculars. She said there was something on the side of the nest. She said, but it didn't look organic. It was green, but I couldn't figure out what in the world it was. So she came back the next day with her spotting scope, and she said, the first thing I noticed was I saw elastic. And then she said it was kind of tattered by then, and she said I looked closer. It was a pair of women's panties. They had decorated their nest with something green, but it was a pair of women's panties. And then we started speculating about where the eagle found them. Did they rip them off of a clothesline or what? So it's always an adventure. Then there's eagle sex.
They look like fun.
Sean Lee, you probably haven't gotten this question or comment yet, but you will. Somebody will call and say, I have to share with you, I saw the most wonderful, magical, spiritual thing. I saw eagles mating in the air. And so they explain, they saw them lock talons, cartwheel, and it was just magical. And I said, well, no, that's not what you saw. And I said, this is part of their courtship. It's very important to their relationship, but that's not what they're doing. Oh, yes, it is. My grandma told me a long time ago that's how eagles.
Wow.
That's how eagles mate. I said, well, no.
That's why we adopted.
Their reproductive organs are not in their feet. They can't do it in the air. So they don't like that answer. This is what eagles mating should look like. And they didn't like I've been hung up on. I've been told I need to go back to school. I should quit my job because I don't know what's going on. Finally, one of my favorite eagle stories happened 2 years ago up in the Panhandle, not far from where Jim and I live now. We were coming back from Panama City Beach. The Screaming Eagle Band was full of birds. We'd been to a festival. And we were traveling on Monday morning through Apalachicola. And the engine light comes on, the oil light comes on in the van. And so Jim pulls into the Napa store to see if there is a mechanic in town. So so they said, yeah, he'd go over to the convenience store across